Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's see.
It is a good morning.
Welcome to Into the Words, a podcast from the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center.
Thank you.
Today in the cabin is our good friend, Crystal Allen. Crystal, talk to us. So, Writing for All Young Readers is the workshop you're here for.
Yes.
And it's Christy Dempsey and Kelly Starling Lyons who you're teaching this workshop with. And I love the story you have to tell. So, tell us.
This is amazing. I met Christy and Kelly back in 2005. We were at a writing workshop in a place called Chautauqua, New York. And I had no idea what was going to happen there. I was just excited because I had been given a scholarship to attend, and there was no way I would have been able to go had I not been given this scholarship by Kent Brown. And I went and I met all of these writers who were wanting to become children's book authors. It was an amazing setting, and we were all wanting to stay in contact. And over the years we have, and Christy, along with Kelly, they've been very successful in their writing. I've been successful in mine, and we've talked about our beginnings, which was at Chautauqua, and then we got an opportunity to teach at the Highlights Foundation. For us, it was full circle to be able to give back what was given to us. And I'm so honored to be able, not only just to be able to teach here, but to teach here with Christy and Kelly. It's a feeling that it's very hard to describe other than almost euphoric.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And Gwendolyn Hooks is not here with us this year, but she was with you at Chautauqua 2005, and she taught with you in this course last year.
She most definitely did. And Gwendolyn, we stay in contact. Actually, we even still talk about being together last year and being on this property and how it made us feel. And I called Gwen even last night when I was in my room, telling her I'm here and you're not, and I'm missing you, because when I think of Highlights, I think of the four of us. And so she was sad that she couldn't be here with us.
So this is great. Like your story, this is that full circle. You came to Chautauqua to the Highlights Foundation Writers Workshop there. That's almost 15 years ago now, 2005. As a student, you had a story, you had your passion. And fast forward, and here you are, you're writing and publishing books, you're speaking, you're teaching, you're doing all of those things that you had set out to do. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful. Kent Brown said to me when I thanked him for the scholarship, he said, "Do something with it."
Yeah.
Those were his words. That was the only thing he said to me.
Yeah.
Was do something with it. And so I set out to do just that, to do something with that. It's not every day that someone gives you an opportunity to do what you love. Yeah. Many times you have to find your own ways to get something done. Here was a man who saw a lot of people wanting to write, and he didn't care that whether they were writing for Highlights for Children or if they were writing for another publisher. That's how much he loves children and how much he loves children's writers, that he was willing to develop writers to write for anyone, any publisher.
Right.
That to me is the most amazing thing about Highlights, is that you love children so much. You love the fact that you want to make them readers so much that it doesn't matter what other publisher hires those writers. You're wanting to help teach them to become writers. To me, that's that is just amazing.
Well, tell me a little bit about your writing and what your writing life looks like now. Do you have a regular writing practice?
I do. I try to write about 4 hours every day.
Okay.
I try to do that, and sometimes it's broken. If I'm working on a particular scene and I don't write my chapters in order, I write them when they come to me. I write them as I see them in my head, and that could happen at any time. While I'm watching a television show, a scene could come to me, or a character may begin to walk in my head and want attention from me. At first, I thought I needed medication, but then I realized that it was just characters that had something to say, and they were hoping that I would say it for them. And so writing, sometimes uh, I don't take that 4 hours together. Sometimes it's 1 hour, and then I'll go and I'll sit somewhere and I'll think about a scene, and I'll come back and I'll work on it again. But I try to get in at least 4 hours a day.
So, what does that mean that you write characters or scenes? When in your process do you put that together into a story?
It I think it's a gift that I have, and I'm not alone. There are many writers that have been blessed with this same gift, and that is characters visit them in their minds, and it is an honor to have a character visit you and say, I have chosen you to write my story.
So they're there, and you're now tuned into and pulling those characters out.
What is it that you want? That is what I'm looking for. What is it that you want from me? What is it that you're wanting to say? And so I began to put those scenes together with that character. And I'm not saying that I've ever developed a character because, or ever created, I mean. I've never created a character. They've always come to me fully dressed and they know what they want. It's just my job is to write that character's story, and that's the beauty of what I do, is to be able to do that. And it's fun to me also to find that character story, write it, and then hopefully it's one that works.
So I have this vision of you kind of a character coming to you, and then you're kind of noodling on it, and you've got all these snippets of character. And at some point, is there like this eureka moment where it all comes together and you see the storyline, or does that how does that all develop for you as these characters are coming up to life?
Well, the best example I could give is my first book that I wrote. I wanted to write a book about children that like to bowl, and the background was going to be a bowling alley, and these kids were just going to be playing there. But I didn't have any real faces on my characters. So I started writing on that, but it wasn't happening. There was a thickness in my writing that I didn't like. So I put that story down. And maybe 2 weeks later, I was watching an episode of CSI on the television. And this character began walking around in my head, and he didn't look like my sons, my nephews. I didn't know who this young man was, little African American young man. And he's just walking around in my head like he owns it. And he goes down the street, and in my mind's eye, I'm watching all this, and he goes into a bowling alley, and I can almost hear the strikes and the pins falling and all that. And it's as if he turned around to say, this is not a third person story, it's my story. It's my story to tell. And so I went back to that bowling story, and I wrote it in first person with this character as the lead, and it flowed so easily. This young man, it's probably one of the easiest stories I've ever written, and it's because I found him and I found his story and was able to put them together.
That's cool.
It is cool.
That's
it is
cool.
really cool. Yep.
Okay, so now what? You're writing, and what else happens in your life? I think you were talking about school visits, and what does What does Crystal Allen's life look like right now?
I am so busy, but it's a good busy. I do a lot of author visits, but my author visits are different than normal. I believe I need to give something back. Just like here, Highlights gave something to me. I feel like I want to give something back. And I do that with my school visits. When I go, I teach a writing workshop. And my workshop is set up because these teachers, they spend so much time on tests, testing, that they are unable to show their students the joy of writing, how amazing writing stories that they have in them to empty out. And they're unable to do that because they see writing as a chore, as homework, as something schoolwork that they have to do instead of seeing it as a pleasure, as
Right.
something fun. And so that's where I come in. I go to the schools and I teach this formula to the students that basically gives them 4 things that they need in their story. And I allow them, while I'm there, to create stories from these 4 lines so that they can see themselves creating stories in 30 seconds, everything they need to put in their story. Well, once that happens, I then challenge them to enter a writing contest that I do. And by this time, these kids are ready. They are ready to write. And my contest actually allows for 15 winners. And I let the teachers and the librarian pick the 15 winners. And those winning stories are put on my website underneath the school name. The students' stories are there with their names next to the story, and they stay there for a full year. So people can come to my website, they can tell their family, and something they can be proud of is right there on my website. And then I take a portion of the funds that the school pays to me for visiting. I put that aside, and for my 15 winners, I go back to the school and have lunch with them. I take pizza and I take drinks and one of those big chocolate chip cookies that they love, and I critique their stories and I tell them why they were chosen to be winners because their writing is amazing. And I talk to them about writing, and we're having a party in the midst. It's a writing party, and I make them members of my writing club, and I give them my email address so that they can email me anytime. Mrs. Allen, I'm writing this story and I'm having this kind of a problem, and can you help me? And I always do. So it's trying to bring back a Chautauqua in a different kind of a way, and to find writers and give them an opportunity to learn how to write so that they'll grow understanding this. This is really something that I can do.
That's great. It's like that whole idea of how are we empowering youth to realize they can be writers and to show them
Absolutely.
that path.
Absolutely. I didn't have that as a child. No one told me I could be a writer. I didn't even know that there were any African American writers in the world. I didn't even know that African American people could become authors. When I was a kid, I wasn't presented with any books that were created, written, anything by African American authors or illustrators. So as I grew and I found out that there were African American authors and illustrators there, I knew that if this ever happened to me, if I was ever able to follow that dream, that I would present this opportunity to children in elementary school so that they know from the beginning, if this is something you want to do, you can, and don't let anyone stop you.
That's awesome. Crystal Allen, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for allowing me to.
It's a real treat to have you here at the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center. I'm real glad you'll be teaching Writing for All Young Readers this weekend. But I'm also so thankful for all you do to support the idea that children are the world's most important people and the craft of writing, whether it's with the children in the school visits or the adults who you'll be teaching here and at other conferences. So thank you.
Thank you very much.